Alright, today we're going to take a look at inequality and interval notation. And inequalities, whenever you have something that is less than or greater than, you're always going to use these arrows that just point to the left or to the right. Alright. Also with inequality notation, if you're less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you're also going to include this little line underneath those arrows to signify that you want to include that number. And I'll show you an example on the next slide. With interval notation, you're going to use parentheses with less than or greater than, and you're going to use these brackets whenever you're less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Alright, so let's take a look at the statement x is greater than 4. What we're going to do is we're going to write it in inequality form and then graph it on a number line. We'll do the same thing then with interval form and graph that on a number line. When you want your x values greater than 4, you have to ask yourself what value satisfies that statement. Is 5 greater than 4? Yeah, it is. Is 6 greater than 4? Yes, those are all numbers greater than 4. So 4 is going to be the lowest number possible that I could use, but we want all the ones that are greater than 4, so am I going to include 4? No, the answer is not. I want to include everything greater than 4, so we want all the x values that are greater than 4. We're not going to include the 4 value, we want all the ones that are greater than that. And when we write that on a number line, I'll put a 0 here, 4 here, we're going to use an open circle to signify we want all the numbers that are greater than 4 but not 4. We don't want to include 4. Think of that as like a shield protecting the 4 value, and we want all the positive values greater than that. Alright. Your interval notation is going to be a little bit different. Alright. We're not going to include 4, so it's just going to be a 4 here, and we're going all the way up to, right, this line is never ending. So we want all the ones that are greater than 4, that's going all the way up to positive infinity, alright, and beyond. Right, and the way you graph this is actually pretty simple. You'll just put a parenthesis at 4 and draw your arrow to the right. Right. One last example here. We have x is at least 2, so the lowest number it can be is 2, but less than 7. All right, this is known as a compound inequality. And the way I write these, I usually start with placing my variable, and I do pieces at a time. So I want the x values that are at least 2. So that's going to be 2 is the lowest number. I'm going to include it because it can be a 2. I want all the x values that are greater than or equal to 2. And at the same time, they need to be less than 7. All right? They're not going to include 7. They're going to be less than 7. All right? And I would suggest whenever you read these, read them from the variable side first. X values greater than or equal to 2, and the x value is less than 7. All right, when we graph this on a number line, 2, 7, this is going to be a closed circle. To show that I'm including the 2, think of that as like a black hole. I'm going to include those values, and the 7 is going to be an open circle, and I want everything in between. That means that any value between 2 and 7, and including 2, will satisfy this inequality. All right. Interval notation, it's a little bit easier, I think. You're going to use a bracket for the 2 to show that we want to include the 2. And we're going to use a parenthesis for the 7 to show that we want everything up to 7 but not including it. All right? And when you graph these, you actually just transfer this straight down into the graph. All right, and we're done.